Japan just put nearly 1 million of its students to the test, and wow, the results are eye-opening. They're pointing to a really startling gap, and it's not what you might think. It's not that students know less stuff. It's that they're having a tough time with the critical skills you really need for today's world. So let's dive in and break down what this massive survey is telling us about the future of learning.
皆さんこんにちは、ミームルです。
First off, let's just take a second to wrap our heads around the sheer scale of this thing. You see this number? Almost 950,000? That's how many third-year middle school students took this test. We're not talking about a small sample size here. This is basically a full-body X-ray of the entire nation's educational health.
All right, so what did this huge survey actually find? We're about to see that the real story isn't about memorizing facts anymore. Nope. It's all about what students can do with the knowledge they have.
Yeah, the big takeaway here isn't just that grades are slipping or something simple like that. What the report is really showing is this growing divide between old school skills and what the world actually demands now. I mean, today you've got to be able to analyze, connect different ideas, and explain your thinking, not just spit back facts you've memorized.
So let's get into the first major challenge the survey flagged. They're calling it the connection barrier. And it's exactly what it sounds like, a real struggle to link different pieces of information together. You know, in today's world with just a constant fire hose of information, this isn't just some academic skill. It's a flat-out survival skill.
Okay, to really get what this means, let's look at a question straight from the test. It seems pretty simple. Students were asked, did broccoli shipments from a certain area, prefecture A, go up or down over a 10-year period? Seems straightforward enough, right?
But, and here's the catch, they were given two different graphs. The first one shows Prefecture A's share of the national market, which actually went down a tiny bit. The second graph, though, shows the total volume of shipments in tons. Now, the whole point here is to create a little bit of confusion. Which graph tells the real story? Which one would you pick?
The secret was hiding in that second graph. You see, Prefecture A's market share did dip a little, but the entire market for broccoli just exploded during that time. So what does that mean? It means their actual shipping volume went way up. And that is the connection barrier in action. It's that struggle to pick the right piece of data and connect the dots to figure out what's really going on.
And the results? Well, they're pretty telling. Less than a third of students, just 31.2%, could actually pick the right graph and explain why it was the right one. The rest? They were either tricked by the percentage graph or just couldn't explain their answer. It just goes to show you, seeing the data and understanding the data are two totally different things.
All right, on to the second major hurdle, and this one really builds on the first, because you know, it's one thing to find the right answer. It's a whole other ballgame to be able to explain how you got there. The report calls this the explanation gap.
For example, check out this geometry problem. Students got a diagram with some information, and their job was to write a logical proof to show that a specific shape inside it was a parallelogram. This is a pure test of deductive reasoning. Can you build a logical case from A to B to C?
And wow, the results here are really striking. So about a third got it right, another third got it wrong. But look at that last bar. That's the one that really gets me. Nearly a third of all students left it completely blank. It's not just that they didn't have the answer. They didn't even know where to begin to build an argument.
And for a lot of the students who did try to answer, there was this one critical flaw: circular reasoning. They'd basically write something like, this shape is a parallelogram because, well, it's a parallelogram. They were using the conclusion to prove itself. It just shows a really fundamental gap in understanding what a logical explanation even is. So, okay, we've seen the challenges. What's the plan? The good news is the report doesn't just point out the problems. It also lays out a pretty comprehensive game plan for building these essential 21st century skills.
The strategy they're proposing is pretty multi-layered. It kicks off with tech, pushing forward with the Giga School program to make sure every student has their own device. But it's also about fundamentally changing how we teach, shifting from just lecturing to more hands-on, inquiry-based learning. Of course, that means giving teachers more support. And they're even using tech for something called School DX, that's digital transformation, to slash the paperwork so teachers can actually focus on, teaching students.
And all of this brings us to the big question, doesn't it? All this data, these challenges, these new plans, they're all pointing to a really fundamental shift in what it even means to learn and what we should all expect from our education system. When you boil it all down, this survey is really signaling a huge transition. We are moving away from an era where memorizing facts was king and into an era where using those facts is what matters.
So the big question it leaves us with isn't just for teachers or policymakers, it's for all of us. How do we adapt? How do we change our schools, our teaching, and even our own way of thinking to get ready for this new reality?
It's a huge topic, for sure, with no easy answers, but I hope this breakdown gave you a clearer picture of what's going on. このチャンネルが興味深いと思った方はチャンネル登録といいねボタンをよろしく。